Republican Brad Knott is one of more than 60 new members of the U.S. House. The North Carolina Republican had a career as a federal prosecutor before running for Congress. His father had worked as an assistant U.S. attorney. Representative Knott talks here about his motivation for running for a House seat, and he tells us about his family, including his grandfather, who at 99 years old attended his swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol in January.
So I was born in North Carolina in Wake County. On both sides of my family, my mom and my dad, they both hail from eastern North Carolina. And so I'm a very proud eastern North Carolinian. I'm actually one of 6 children. And the fun fact about me that used to be a secret, not so much anymore, is that I'm a quadruplet. My parents were going for a 3rd child and were surprised, blessed to have 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so it was a wild childhood in all the right ways and all the good ways. We were all compressed kind of within 3 years of each other. So my siblings are my best friends. My parents are still here. I have one grandfather who's still here with us. And so going home is always a treat. And now all the nieces, nephews, I have 2 daughters. My wife and I, we still live in Raleigh. And so East North Carolina is a great place, and I'm proud to call it home.
Unique experiences being a quadruplet?
You know, it's an interesting question to receive, because I'm always asking what's unique about being just a standalone or a twin or a triplet. It's normal to me, but there is a certain layer of closeness you develop with your siblings who are quadruplets. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, and there is certainly a very real sense of knowing what the others are thinking, easy communication, and just sort of built-in best friends. So it's all good.
Tell us about your parents.
So my parents, again, they're both from East North Carolina. My mom is from Wilson, North Carolina. My dad is from Knightdale, North Carolina, which is eastern Wake County. Both of them have farming in their background. They both have people who are fiercely loyal to East North Carolina and their family. And both hail from very similar backgrounds in many respects. Both very committed to their faith, very committed to their church, very committed to their communities, and have a very robust history of service, whether it's political, nonprofit, Sunday school teachers, just great people.
Your dad also had a legal career, just like you did before you came to Congress.
That's right.
Tell us more.
So I grew up, and my dad would often tell us stories about the days when he was a prosecutor. And those are some of my earliest stories that I remember of him telling me. He actually had to leave the public service and go into private practice when he found out he was having quads, because given the salary limitations of being a federal prosecutor, groceries are expensive. And so he had to leave. But his stories always captivated me. And back then, the most serious criminal he had were probably bank robbers, occasionally some bootleggers. About the only drug he dealt with was marijuana. And it was an interesting circle, because when I became a federal prosecutor about 10 years ago, obviously the crime and the enterprise of the criminal organizations had grown substantially, both in the severity, the organization, the international flavor of it. And so how my dad began telling me about his cases and his stories that he saw, I ended up being able to tell him about my cases and the stories that I was seeing. But I knew from a very young age that if I was going to be a lawyer, I wanted to be a federal prosecutor. And being able to do that for about a decade was one of the highlights of my career, to be sure.
And tell us then why you left that career to run for Congress.
Yeah, to be perfectly blunt, it was a hard decision. It was a wonderful job. I loved every moment of it. And getting able to work with law enforcement all over the country, state, local, federal, it was the honor of a lifetime. And I was actually talking with one of my colleagues on the House floor the other night, and we both reminisced about being a federal prosecutor and getting able to stand in front of a jury in the well of a court and to say, I represent the United States of America in this case. That was just one of the most, I never got tired of it. It always gave me the chills when I got to do it. And it was of course an encouragement for me to have all my T's crossed. I was blessed to have never lost a trial. And it was a tough decision, but ultimately what I saw over the last 4 years as it relates predominantly to the border policy, it was just such an overwhelming problem in every respect, not just criminal justice, but every community, whether it was schools, first responders, hospitals, you name it. The border crisis of the last 4 years was overwhelming. And it made my job impossible to do as someone who focused on organized crime. It was like whack-a-mole, I mean, truly. We were not able to make much headway. And I just felt compelled, given what I was able to see from that vantage point, to throw my hat into the ring.
When would you say you first became politically aware in your life?
You know, when you're a federal prosecutor, if you do the job well, politics are at the door, right? You follow the law, you pursue evidence with extreme intensity, and you bring the most readily provable offense based off the evidence that's collected. And I'm someone who always kept up with current events and so forth, but for that decade, I of course followed politics. But when I began my legal career as a federal prosecutor, I was actually brought in while Barack Obama was president, served under President Trump, and then served under President Biden. And I did not change my approach to the job in any way. And I would say most seasoned federal prosecutors would agree, politics has no place in those offices. Politics can affect those offices. Policies affect those offices. And that's what I saw when I was the last 4 years, just the overwhelming nature of the border crisis. It affected the job a great deal. So I would say I became especially attuned the last couple of years, for sure.
All that being said, were you always a Republican in your mind?
Conservative, yes.
And wanted to ask about your district. What part of North Carolina is it, and what are the unique challenges there?
So my district is I would say, the choice district of North Carolina. It sort of is a backward C shape. It starts in Caswell County and goes all the way around and ends in Lee County. And we are surrounding Raleigh, North Carolina, which is, Raleigh-Durham, the Triangle, the Research Triangle Park. So we not only lead the state in innovation and high-tech, biopharma, sort of the cutting-edge jobs, but we also lead the state in agribusiness. We have, some of the most robust sweet potato growers in the state. We have robust tobacco growers in the state. We have cotton. We have the full gambit. So everything from farms that have been there for over 150 years all the way up to some of the most modern cutting-edge technology. And it's growing because of the conservative policies in North Carolina. We have a very, very robust economy in my district, and it's one that I'm really proud to represent. And it's a big district. I would say one of the challenges is just getting to every corner of it. I mean, again, it starts all the way up in Caswell and goes all the way around to Lee. So it's a trek, but it's a wonderful trek. Wonderful people, nice people, deeply patriotic people, and representing them has been a real honor for me.
As we tape this interview, you are 38 years old, one of a good number of members who are under the age of 40. What does that mean to you in terms of the voice that you'll be able to bring to this place?
Well, it's certainly a different perspective. To turn that on its head, there are a lot of new members who are younger, but there are a lot of older members who are, in fact, older. And I think it breathes life into the conference, certainly. We bring a different perspective. We bring sort of a boots-on-the-ground approach to policy and to the conference debates. And I think I speak for all the young members. We have a lot of energy. We have a lot of very aspirational goals, not just for us personally, obviously, but for the country. And the country does have significant problems, but it's still the greatest country in the world. And each one of us wants to serve it, wants to better it, and ensure that our children have the same opportunities that we had.
Wanted to end, Congressman, at the beginning of your term here and opening day, the date you were sworn in. Very special visitor came to Washington.
Yes.
Tell us that story.
So my grandfather is 99 years old, J.T. Knott, and he is a lifelong East North Carolinian, as I discussed. He was born on a dirt floor. He has a high school graduation, and he walked off the stage and went and served the United States in the World War II European theater. And he's one of the finest men I've ever known. And having him muster the energy, I mean, he's in a wheelchair now, to come to Washington, and he was actually in the House chamber when I got sworn in. It was one of the highlights I will never, ever forget. And if he sees this, I want him to know how grateful I am.
Congressman, thank you.
Thank you.